Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Success After Trauma, where we bring on guests and they share a little bit about their story, those vulnerable moments, what they've been through, and what that aha moment was like for them and their journey, and then what they're doing today to give back. And today we have a special guest, Tamara. I've been chatting with Tamara a little bit before we got on, and I'm going to ask Tamara to share a little bit about her journey with us. So I'll be hearing it for the first time. Tamara speaks on a subject that is very near and dear to my soul, and that is, well, two of them: conscious parenting and childhood. I use the label trauma, listen, childhood experiences, whatever it may be. These two subjects are very, very passionate to me, and Tamara speaks on and leads in these areas as well. So I'm super excited about today's episode. Tamara, thank you for being on today. Would you tell us a little bit about who you are and how'd you even get started on this journey?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I already loved our past conversation, so I'm very much looking forward to this one, even though they were brief before. This is a long answer, so I will try to keep it as short as possible. I think many of us working in this space of healing, coaching, consulting, trauma, um, all of it, often many of us have our own journey. I find the best coaches are the ones that have been through. They've been through the depression, through the trauma, through the PTSD. I've held all those labels myself at some point in my life. And as I was sharing earlier, I now keep them close to my heart. Everything that brought me to this moment, as a 42-year-old conscious mama who feels like the relationship with my daughter is one I couldn't have even dreamed up if I tried. It's beyond my wildest dreams. And I believe that is the outcome of this work, that truly when we do this work and when we find our way back home and we learn how to reparent ourselves, and we do that deep work within our nervous system, within our belief systems, we get to find our way back home and we get to free ourselves. And then what our experiences in this lifetime, they become beyond what our little, egoic
Mhm.
conscious mind could have dreamed up if it tried. So my journey is quite long. I feel grateful for that. I feel like the beginning of my spiritual awakening was around 19. Um, and I'll share here, even though what I was sharing with you right before we popped on is I'm for sure at a place in my life where I don't feel a need to share my story so much. I share it when it's a beautiful opportunity to support others. I no longer share it for that validation or for that need, because I found such peace within my own divine curriculum, within my being, that it feels so beautiful. Like I'm so ready to tell a different story. And I feel grateful for that. And it's taken me a long time to even be able to get to that place. So when I share my story, I normally share it because I'm speaking to someone who it feels similar to. And I feel like there's aspects of my journey that would support, or I'm working with a client in a direct situation of something I experienced. And that empathy and that compassion and that ability to say, like, I truly know, what a version of this feels like within my own being. And I'm here to witness you and support. And so my journey, at 19, my whole world kind of fell apart. I was a college scholarship athlete. I was a straight A student. You name it, everything was shiny on the outside, and I was suffering big time on the inside. I had been suffering with an eating disorder for 7 years, even though I was the fastest runner in my high school and got a scholarship to college. And I later learned through, getting help with the eating disorder and checking into a hospital, the remembrance of my childhood trauma came flushing back. It was like, okay, you're in a safe enough place, kind of, that it's okay for it to come back. A lot of us, survive. We tend to push those memories out, the trauma, to survive. And then when those open back up, it can be a really intense experience. So for me at 19, my world came crashing down. And it felt like I lost everything. My scholarship, my college, my friends, my boyfriend, like all of it. It was just, it was done. I needed to go inward. And so I had a really long journey of, getting my physical body back, into healthy nourishment. And then really the biggest piece was getting, at that point, my brain like nourishment, because it was so malnourished, the thoughts that I was having. And then now what I specialize in with the nervous system work, that truly was such an important piece. I mean, nervous system work is essential. It's essential for raising our children. They literally, when mothers carry their children, we're sharing a nervous system with our child. They are taking on our stress levels, the way we respond to the world, our fight or flight, our unhealthy coping mechanisms, our unhealthy patterns, those ancestral cycles that we're in of abuse or trauma or neglect or whatever it is. And so I was able to do a lot of that work. I've done so much work over the years, and it's really beautiful to be able to share from a place of peace and contentment. And I will be doing work for the rest of my life, of course. That's, why am I here if not that? It's a different journey now. It no longer feels like something bigger than me. It feels like something that is so beautiful to dance with. And the opportunities for growth that come my way are the things I'm most grateful for, because it helps me expand into a more loving being, opening my heart, opening my essence to pour more unconditional love into the world. And I truly feel that that's why I'm here. I'm a vessel for love. I'm here to support others on their journey. I'm here to serve. I'm here to be the best mother that I possibly can. I feel like I've broken almost every single cycle in my family, and I've helped free my daughter, and she's helped free me because we've done it together. And I left a career on Wall Street after 10 years to do what I love. And I've been coaching for about 12 or 13 now. And I feel really, really blessed. So that's a little bit of my
That is a
story.
thank you. That I love hearing it. What at what point, so when things kind of crumbled, um where was you tell me a little bit about, or what you remember, or what you were willing to share around what was kind of the aha moment. And I know you talked about like everything was crumbled, but do you remember a little bit more, like what was that, and what was the first thing that started to put you on the journey? Like maybe the first modality or person or
Uh,
book, or what was that
yeah,
first guide or nudge? What do they call it on the hero's journey? The mentor shows up, I
yeah,
think. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, the very first, I was really lucky. I'm not the biggest fan of talk therapy. I think it's a beautiful gateway. A lot of times people can be in therapy for 10, 15, 20 years talking about the same story and the same trauma. I see those stories then getting cemented deeper into the
Mm,
DNA. So it
mm,
becomes them, right? We are not our stories. We are not our feelings. We are not our sensations. And we can really get that. We begin to expand beyond that into the essence of the limitless potential in which we live. And so, um, to go back, my therapist in the eating disorder hospital back in New Jersey, she was a Pi-Phi. I was a Pi-Phi in college. I felt seen for the first time. I was a really sensitive, potentially psychic, emotional child. And those are my superpower. These are my gifts. This is how I'm able to serve. I can sit in front of a person and open myself up to become a channel for their own reflection, their own guidance, to enhance their own wisdom. I am no different, well, we're all different, but I'm no greater than
mm.
any other person. I'm no more worthy. I'm no more, we're all that. It's just a matter of remembering it. So being seen by someone and witnessed and heard and being told that I could feel what I was feeling and being able to fall apart. I was kind of that example of that like perfect child, straight A's this and straight A's that, and worked 3 jobs in college and graduated top of my class and went right on to Wall Street. And it was just like, do. And it was like, will you love me now? Will you love me now? Am I good enough now? Like, am I worthy now? And so I was chasing a dream that was never going to come true because my divine worth doesn't come from anything outside of me. It's something that lives within me from the moment I'm born. Anyone breathing and existing is worthy of anything they desire. We are divine beings. So that was my first. And then it was kind of a journey just getting back on my feet, and I had a successful career on Wall Street. And my first kind of meditation teacher, I went on a spiritual yoga fast, and I studied with Dr. Gabriel Cousins, one of the only raw Ayurvedic doctors in the country. And it was my first oh, go ahead.
Tamara, thank you for letting me just butt in there. Forgive
Yeah,
me and or
yeah.
judge me.
No.
So when you went on this out of curiosity, was this like a leap of faith, or had you already been dabbling and you're like, it's time?
I had been dabbling. I mean, I was very different from the beginning. I was different in high school. I was different in college. I worked on Wall Street, and I had like, in my office, there were supplements and a Vitamix, and I had green juices every morning and green smoothies. I was so healthy. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. It took me like $10,000 in 2 months to figure out what was wrong with me. My hair was falling out, like the aftermath of the eating disorder and the trauma and the stress. And essentially I was living in fight or flight for probably 30 years, if I was getting really honest. That caught up to me at different times. And so I really kind of reclaimed my own health, not only my own, like, did I reclaim my worth? I reclaimed like this vessel and thriving it. I was told I probably wouldn't be able to have children. I have an incredibly healthy, almost 10-year-old. I was told a lot of things, that I'd be on medication for the rest of my life. And I don't recommend this. Everyone's their own journey. I pulled myself off of the medication. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not putting something in my body for the rest of my life when I know in my gut there's another way. And so I went, I got certified as a holistic health counselor on Wall Street and a raw food chef. And I studied quantum reflex analysis, and I got my yoga teacher training. And I've done like 10 certifications since then. I'm a Psyche facilitator, and, trained in womb work and, yoga nidra and breath work, and you name it. I've done it for my own evolution. I don't really teach. I practice Psyche in my business coaching and conscious parenting coaching, but not the other modalities. I don't do very much. So to answer your question, it was who I was slowly emerging, and peeling away the layers of what I needed to do for other people that society wanted or my upbringing wanted. And I don't say this in judgment. I love my parents. My parents did the best they could with the tools they have, and some people aren't capable of meeting you in life, and that's okay. And if you stay stuck in wanting someone to change to meet you, you too will stay stuck. But if you can free yourself from that story, from that need, go within, find it within your own essence, you will then see it reflected back to you in the external world, and you will free yourself and the person you are in that struggle with as well. And you will also free yourself of the judgment, the negative attachment to a certain outcome, which comes with expectation and disappointment and hurt and pain and suffering. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure like the goal of forgiving other people is really to come home to forgive ourselves, because most likely whatever anyone did to you, you learn to then do to yourself 10 times worse.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We are just really good at left to, without consciously evaluating. We are so good at just rejudging ourselves over and over and over and over and over again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So take us a little bit on the journey of, I'm curious, take us a little bit on when you went on your first, or forgive me if it's not first, but when you went on that spiritual journey,
Mhm.
tell me about a little bit, like, what does this start to look like for you in life? What kind of realizations or awakenings are you aware of at that time?
Yeah. Well, I thought I was going on a vacation. Went on a 1 week, like, spiritual yoga journey retreat. And then I call my, hedge fund back in New York. And I was like, I'm staying an extra week for the 0 point meditation. I was sure they were going to fire me because back in the day in the position I had, like, you didn't go away for 2 weeks. And I trusted, and something said, Tamara, stay. And I had been feeling for quite some time this unsettled feeling like, Tamara, this is not what you're meant to be doing in the world. And I couldn't quite figure out what I was meant to be doing, even though it was right in front of me. Hello, I was already certified as a coach, but like
Mm.
didn't even cross my mind. So I walked this labyrinth after fasting, green juice fasting for a week and doing a sweat lodge, and we're with some elders. And one night I was like, I'm just going to go up. I was in Patagonia, Arizona, up there. And I walked this labyrinth and I was like, I surrendered and I said, what am I supposed to be doing in the world? Like, show me, tell me, help me, guide me. And I walked that labyrinth and it was like, you are meant to serve. You are meant to help people, figure out how to help people. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what I'm doing. How am I going to do that? And so I applied for this master's program and I was like, if I get in, I'm leaving Wall Street. And of course, my family thought I was nuts, because I had a very successful
Mhm,
career and
mhm.
advanced like further than, any of my family members had done at a very young age. I was still in my 20s. Um, and I followed my dreams and I started a coaching practice. I left Wall Street. I went to Europe for 6 months. I kind of was in my own internal journey and I started my coaching practice in New York. And then I was flying out to LA and ended up moving all the way across the country on my own, just following that call. And 15 months later, I had a little girl and she was a bit of a surprise. And she might have been probably my biggest awakening. There was so much that shifted in me once I had my little girl, with probably the biggest thing being there's no way I'm going to have negative thoughts about myself. There's no way I'm going to say a negative thing about myself. There's no way I'm going to model this to my daughter. I'm like, this stops here. No more. No more abuse, no more suffering, no more hurting ourselves as the women in my family. And so in that first spiritual journey that I told you about, the one I did on Wall Street, as I was sitting in meditation, I had a download in that trip in 2009. And it said, you're having a little girl. And if you don't do the work to heal your own trauma, you're going to pass it down to her. And I was like, so I had a 4-year head start on working
Mm,
on some deep stuff. And of course, I
mhm,
forgot that my daughter was coming. And so when she
mhm.
came, I was all surprised. And then I was like, wait, no, I
Yeah, I
remember
knew about
that
this. Yeah,
message. I knew she was
yeah.
coming. And so I did as much as I could before. And I've had the honor and the privilege of raising my daughter consciously from the moment she was born. And so,
Will you take I say a moment, take as long as you're willing to go into it, because this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful subject that's near and dear to my heart. I am working on and becoming more and more aware of. Will you talk about, for those listening, that when you say conscious parenting, they say, what is she talking about? Would you start painting a picture for people on what is conscious parenting?
yeah, yeah. So conscious parenting for sure falls into the realm of conscious relationship. And one of the most powerful aspects of any relationship is a few things. It's self-awareness, understanding who we are, having a relationship with our own nervous system, understanding that we have triggers that are separate from what our children or our partner are doing, Our own intense response is most likely not their fault, and often is not even because of them. And it's normally rooted so much deeper in something that happened a long time ago that ingrained itself in our nervous system, that anytime it is activated, one believes without that awareness that it is that person, that situation, that thing. But when you can go deeper than the person, situation, and thing, and you can look what's underneath that, you start to see the pattern. You start to see the unhealthy, cycle, or the limiting belief, or the fear, or there's something underneath it. And so much of this healing is looking at the layers. It's not that person. They're just there to help remind you, you still have this to work on. And so same goes with our children. Conscious parenting is really about reparenting ourselves first. Many of us were not raised by a conscious parenting, let alone a conscious parenting coach. They were doing the best they could with the tools they had, but it's very old school parenting, top-down parenting. You'll do what I say because I said so. You'll respect me because I said so. You'll do what I say. I will get you to do things through manipulation, control, fear, all of that. That is not raising a whole being. We want to raise children in a way that they know they are worthy because they exist. They know that there's nothing in this whole world they could ever do to make the love that their parent has for them go away. It really takes one person to unconditionally love you, to really see you, for you to be able to see yourself. So just one, that gives me so much hope, just one person to see you. But they also need a parent to model respect so that the child only knows respect, and that's what they give to the parent, right? I feel so respected by my daughter, so respected, honored, cherished. I also don't believe in like really big tantrums. I don't even like that word. I believe in big feelings, and big feelings are a part of life, right? It's how do we come into relationship with our feelings? How do we relate to that? And part of that is having healthy boundaries. So we have emotional intelligence. We know that emotions are present. They are going to be felt. How are we expressing them, feeling them, moving through them, getting to the other side of them, working with them? So conscious parenting is also conscious language, like speaking from love and respect, and not guilt and shame, not, oh, why aren't you listening? Your sisters are listening. It's like, first of all, drop the why questions. They're not going to help your children. There is subtle shame in all of them. Even, why did you do that? A 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, sometimes even a 6-year-old isn't going to be like, well, mom, I just hit my brother because I was really activated that it felt like you loved him more than me. And I didn't quite know how to respond with my words. So I responded with my hands, and I wasn't quite regulated in my body. That's why I did it, mom, or that's why I did it, dad. Adults aren't even able to get to their why often. And then we treat children so often, we hold them to a level that many parents aren't even able to hold themselves. They're not able to regulate in their body. And there's no such thing as regulation for children without co-regulation. They don't know how to respect themselves or others. And then they're asking their children to respect. How many parents scream at their children, telling them to calm down?
Well, and if I can dive in a little bit, the values levels, and before we get to a certain level of awareness, like people live pretty unconsciously. But like you're saying, not able to do it. And I'm on this journey. So for everyone listening, I'm on this journey. Like I'm an infant. All right. I'm working it through like every day. And my son is like a ton of feedback for me, like a ton of feedback. And the things you're saying, like sometimes I'll literally, like, he might be like acting super goofy in the living room, and I'm like I'm on the phone or something. I'm like, why are you doing that? And then like I catch myself, my whole body language and everything. I'm like, because he's having fun as a kid. Like, what
Yes.
was he supposed to be doing something else? Like, I didn't have a list or something.
Yes.
But I catch
That's
myself
such a
doing it.
great.
And like my
Mm-hmm.
face and all, I'm like, well, because I'm confused. Like, obviously, I was on the phone in my world.
Yes. That's Greg,
Go ahead,
that's such a great, I'm just going to interject really quick
please,
because
please, please.
literally you hit on one of my big wounds. And this, I love that you went right there because this is so big and not talked about. And it's so subtle. So literally our children having fun, being kids, being free, doing something like loving and playful can be a trigger because we can be triggered on on either side, on kind of the positive and the negative. One triggered that it's igniting a remembrance of, wait, I didn't get to be silly.
Mm,
I got
mm,
yelled at and shamed when I was silly because
mm-hmm,
my parents, range of emotions wasn't that wide. They couldn't handle it. They didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know how to respond to it. So they shut it down. And then there's the little child in us that's like, wait, but I want to play too. And I don't know how. And this is really scary for me. And I don't know how to meet you. So
mm-hmm.
there's like this positive and negative aspects to it. And so I love that. That was a trigger with my daughter. I heard myself doing the same thing. Like she would be jumping up and down and being silly. And I would go to like stop her. And I'm like, what is going on with me? And I realized I was a version of that little girl trying to be so silly and so playful. And I wasn't met. And I was kind of shamed for being silly. And it was just who I was. And silliness is beautiful. Play is beautiful. We are meant to play always. So I love, not to interrupt you around like your awareness around that. It's just such a good one. A lot of people get the triggers around, oh, where there's yelling, there was a lot of yelling in my house, or oh, triggers around hitting this. But sometimes people don't get the triggers just being playful. And it's like, what? Oh, and then we go in and we do that inner child work and we regulate that experience in our nervous system. And we fake it till we make it too. In just trying to become as comfortable as possible with our children while they're going through that. And then we begin to match them. Then we can begin to remember. Then we can begin to play. And then everything opens up in our world because we're no longer like this, like holding on so tightly and thinking we need to control it and be serious and all of this. And we let some of those valves open and flow, and magic can happen from there.
I like to point out the highlight of, earlier I spoke on, in the past I utilized the label trauma a lot because for me in my model of the world it was trauma. So cool. But I realized for everyone's model of the world the label doesn't fit as trauma, and so I've begun to say your childhood experiences.
Mhm.
Not just me doing that to my son, and I've done it so many times. And then, but as a child, maybe that was done to us. And every time we go to like let our authentic self out, we get
Mhm.
this vision of like our father being like, "What are you doing?"
Mhm.
And so a lot of times, again, where I use that word experience, I loved how you said I haven't heard the label before. Reparent ourselves
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
realizing, I sometimes people say, "Well, I didn't have any trauma." Well, hey, you had experiences because you got to hear.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you brought a great, our parents were doing the absolute best they could.
Yeah.
Some people made out and had some parents that had a little bit higher ascension. But when we look back as a history, as a civilization, inside of the last century, I mean, we had two world wars, a Great Depression. I mean, they were doing the best they could for sure. We have it a lot more blessed than they. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit rambling. I love this though. I love
No,
this
I
topic.
love it. And I also, everyone has experienced trauma. Trauma is inevitable. Falling, tripping on the sidewalk and getting a scrape, that's trauma, right? And I feel like we also have the opportunity to redefine trauma. It doesn't need to be the really extreme thing you think about. It could be so subtle. It could be one kid turning to you in third grade and saying, "You're an idiot," when you answered and you got it wrong. And then maybe you took that in so deeply and you stopped trying, or you stopped putting yourself out there, and you've lived like a really like life that's not fulfilling. And it could be from that one experience. I mean, people wouldn't think that is trauma, but yeah, it was a traumatic event. It landed in your body in a way that did not allow the highest expression of yourself to, be experienced anymore. You shut down. A
I
version of them shut down.
forgive me. I heard someone say the other day, forgive me, I don't know who to give credit to it, but and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I was like totally on board. They talked about, once we hear this, we're like, yeah, prior to hearing it, we know I didn't have the conscious realization. The trauma is not the event. Someone was saying this, and once we understand it, once we hear it, but the labels, the trauma is not the event. When they first said it, I was like, eh. But two people all the time can go through the same event, and one can be traumatized and the other one would not be. So in
Yeah.
order for it to be scientifically factual that the event is traumatic, then everyone that goes through this event must have the traumatic
Mm-hmm.
result. But if
Mm-hmm.
everyone can't have the traumatic result, then it can't be their event. And then what it boils down to is it's our internal representation of the event.
Yeah.
And just tie in some evidence to what you're saying. Doesn't matter how big or small the event is, it's how we internalized it in that moment. That's
Yeah.
what that's what to say creates, that's what is whatever the trauma. So that like the trauma is, I don't feel loved right now. I don't feel
Mm-hmm.
safe. I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I don't feel
Mm-hmm.
respected. I don't feel,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, maybe it's safe. Maybe you're in the middle of the lunchroom and you're thinking like, oh my God, are they going to attack me?
Mm-hmm.
So now it's so traumatic because safety is missing, and that's, we need safety.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
essential. That's like
Right,
our root
right.
chakra. We need safety and security. And a lot of the children, that their needs weren't met, their basic needs as a child weren't met. They learn that like no one's going to come. No one's going to come help me. And that is, we talked about it for a moment before we hopped on, is essentially we live in a world as adults where no one is coming to save us, and that's really freaking hard.
Can I get you to, could I get you to dial in on, if you would, so right where you're at, we're in a world, no one's coming to save us.
Mm-hmm.
So can you shed a little light for us? So there's parents, again, there's parents that have become conscious to this and they're like, hey, I want to do better. But there's also parents that are not quite conscious. They're doing the best they can right now.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, when we're not consciously parenting, when we're top down, we're really trying to protect our trauma responses or our wounds.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
What can you
And
share?
totally disconnected from our inner child, right? Like not integrated, right? But keep
What
going.
well, that please, actually, you're right there. What can you share? So for whether the parent has the realization that they're doing this or they're hearing it for the first time and now they're just having, can you share some stuff with them, with that parent?
Yeah. Goodness. So there's so many avenues or streets to come in this.
I love,
I
even if you want, like really, like you start to go on even like connecting with that inner child, or but anywhere you would like to
yeah,
take it, please.
yeah, I will definitely talk about the inner child. That's huge. Sometimes people aren't ready to go there right out the gate. Um, I find, and tell me if this was one of my archetypes that I for sure played into, was the victim, right? I was playing the victim archetype, not on purpose, right? I was abused as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that moment, you'd say like I was the victim of abuse. However, I continued to play that archetype for so much of my like young adult life. I was the victim, right? Life was happening to me. It was someone else's fault. Why did this happen to me? It's not fair. I don't understand. Am I bad? Did I do something wrong? Like all of these thoughts that are not true, right? It's not my fault. I did nothing wrong. This was my divine curriculum. I needed that experience to get to here. And that can be hard to wrap, it's
Very hard.
hard
Yeah.
to digest. It
Yeah.
is tough. However, getting to the other side of that, the freedom piece of that, it is the most liberating thing in the whole world. It's not my fault. I forgive those people. And the biggest work was forgiving myself, because
Mhm.
deep down, of course, I thought it was my fault. Of course, I did something to deserve that abuse. That's the eating disorder. I tried to control, like what I put in my body, because I didn't have control as a child, let alone was I met on an emotional level. Did I have that safe, secure love that I knew wasn't going to go away? A lot of love that's given is conditional love. I love you if, I love you when. And so what happens is, to circle back to the inner child, the little child in us shuts down, right? For me, I needed to disconnect from my body in order to survive. So I just went to spirit. I wasn't even really like in my body in many ways, which is why I was in fight or flight. So I was just in survival mode. I didn't even know what harmony really felt like, because there was like a subtle needing to fight the world to survive for decades, until I was able to unravel and unravel and unravel. And one of the big pieces was coming, back into relationship with my little girl, the little girl that was terrified, the little girl that didn't trust me, like the conscious, loving adult anymore. That she didn't trust me to take care of her, because I deserted her, because I didn't know what to do. I wasn't given the tools on how to love her and raise her properly. Like, not my child, right? My little girl, the little girl that lives with us. And we will always have our little being within us, and when we can integrate that and take care of that, it's so beautiful. And when we can step into our conscious, loving adult, and nurture ourselves. Ultimately, some of the biggest work on the planet is giving to ourselves what we crave outside of us. How can we become the energy of that, become the essence of that? And when we become that, instead of looking for it outside of us, because it doesn't come from outside of us, it doesn't. That is the coping mechanism. That is the limiting belief systems. But when you are liberated in your belief system, in your operating system, you know that you can turn within for anything. And your connection to whatever you believe in, source, God, the divine, oneness, nature, anything, your higher self, like, whatever someone's belief system is, and tapping into that. And a lot of healing can come when you tap into, wow, I have always been supported by the divine mother and the divine father, instead of what I talked about earlier, waiting for your parents to show up the way you want them to show up. And what you see is people will get literally trapped in that like 10-year-old little boy energy, just waiting for their parents, and they're playing out that cycle every time they go home. And you wonder why, like, family holidays and Thanksgiving are like so triggering, and people end up yelling and screaming. It's like, because the little child in them is like, will you please see me? Will you hear me? Will you just tell me I'm good enough? Will you stop telling me everything I do is wrong? Will you stop trying to one up me? Or will you stop trying to talk over me? We all just want to be seen and heard and validated. But when we can do that for ourselves, and we're no longer searching for it outside of us, it's liberation, it's freedom.
So
And I'm talking like the end of the story over here. Like, we're way over here. So I love your question. Like, where do you begin? A great place to begin is looking at your triggers. That's one of the first things that I address in my conscious parenting work in children, is boundaries and triggers, right? You can often determine where you don't have good, healthy boundaries by what is triggering you. And so when you start to feel into that, like, if you get triggered when your kid's climbing all over you, like, okay, maybe there's an opportunity for a boundary around that. Like, hey, love, wow, you've got a lot of climbing energy in your body today. You can climb outside, or we can go climb on a tree, but I don't want my body climbed on. Versus, why are you climbing on me? What's wrong with you? Why would you do that? That hurts my body. You want to hurt me? Why would you want to hurt me? Like, there's so many ways. Versus, like, I know who I am. I know what my personal boundaries are. I know what our family boundaries are. I know what our mobile boundaries are. I break boundaries up into different categories. And if you know what your family boundaries are, and you are communicating your family boundaries to your children, then they know this is okay and this is not. What you see in a slightly more chaotic home is boundaries on the go. It's just like, this boundary is being set on this day because
Mhm,
this is
mhm,
how I feel and this is what's coming out of my mouth.
mhm,
How is a child going to keep up with that? That is nearly impossible, let alone if the parents have, if it's a two-parent home. I'm a single parent. It was a bonus of a single parent. I was the one communicating the boundaries, so it was easy. But if there's two parents and they're communicating different boundaries, then you have two grown adults asking the young child to adjust to this parent, adjust to that parent, and like, hop back and forth. That's way too much to ask. You want consistency. You want to learn how to regulate your own nervous system. You want to be communicating healthy boundaries. You want to be communicating in a loving, healthy way. You want to be leaning into conflict. I love conflict. Conflict is how we model to our children empathy, compassion, problem solving, getting through hard things. And we archetype the victim and the villain in children often too. A child gets hit, you go right to the kid that was hitting and make them the villain. We don't know really what happened a lot of times beforehand. We don't know what's going on in their body. When a child is hitting, most likely what they're saying is, Mom, Dad, I am struggling. I am having a really hard time. I don't know what to do, and I need your help. And I need to know that you still love me through this. You've got my back, and we're going to work through this together. And that doesn't happen. They get timeouts, they get yelled, they get told not to hit, they're using trigger words versus like, oh, wow, I can't, like you go up to the hitter. I don't like using that word. And you're like, whoa, why? It feels like you're really wanting to say something, or I came close. Are you okay? So they're not the bad guy. You're there, you're curious, you want to know what's going on. And of course, you're directing to the other child too, like, oh, I saw that. I saw your body get bumped. Are you okay? And you work through that conflict. Both of them get validated. Both of them get heard. Of course, it, depends on that specific example, but this is a general overview. You're compassionate to both of them, that you model to them instead of tell your sister you're sorry, you are modeling, are you okay? I want to check in with your body. How does your body? You don't ask your 4-year-old to do that. You model it to them time and time again until they get it. My daughter says things to me where I'm like, how are you so wise? And then I'm like, oh, wait, that might have come from me. It took me a long time. Part of my journey was to realize that I'm a contributing factor too. I would be like, my daughter's amazing. And so many people would be like, yeah, and you're her mom, like you're guiding her. I'd be like, no, it's all her. And then I was like, oh, it's both of us. Like, I'm doing a darn good job as a mother. It's the thing that's been the most natural, the most like easy, authentic thing in my world. And I'm okay with that. And I'm not going to keep that quiet because we live in a society where, oh, I don't want to make someone else feel bad. No, I want to expand someone else's belief system of what is possible, like how beautiful motherhood can be or parenthood can be. And I'm not saying it's all, unicorns and rainbows. Like I have my journey too, but it's important we celebrate. It's how we retrain our nervous system to find comfort in chaos, to find comfort in true peace. And if we're not celebrating the wins and giving our nervous system time to be in that, how are we going to change that? I'm about to cough if you want to talk.
Yeah, you get in there. No, no, no. Well, I want to share another recent one for me and my son. And again, everyone listening, I'm learning this journey as I go. I'm on my conscious journey of healing and conscious journey of parenting. The other day I was playing. My son likes to play. He has a Switch and he likes playing a couple Mario games. And I'm pretty sure we're playing Mario Kart. And normally he can beat me, but I was winning that day. I got ahead of him a little bit, and he's sitting right next to me, and I noticed like he really he started like he started like getting all, I could hear him, and I'm looking at the TV, and then I could feel him like he's getting all bent out of shape, and like I barely just got a little bit ahead, and I thought to myself, I was like, man, like this programming won't serve well, and like what should I do? Like if you get a little bit behind, like this is when we got to be the most calm, is like what I'm thinking in my head. And I'm thinking like, what should I say to him? And um and we keep going, and the race finishes, and I win the race, and now he's like upset. And I was trying to think like, what do I say? And I had this like realization. He's 8 years old, so he's in his modeling phase, and oh man, he does some. It's wild. Like he is knowing what a modeling phase is and consciously watching the modeling phase. It's wild, like seeing him model behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes the behaviors don't even make sense, but it's just he's trying on a behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So nonetheless, I thought about that, and I had the realization. I'm like, oh shoot, like he's modeling my frustrations some of the
Mm-hmm.
times, like not just me only, but like some of the times, because I get frustrated about things. And so I told him, I said, hey buddy, I said, sometimes, so he's frustrated right now. And I said, hey buddy, sometimes dad gets frustrated. I said, when he gets frustrated, I said, can you help remind him that it's okay, and just calm down and take a breath. And he looked at me like, and he was like, okay. And so that was the end of that moment. And it was like a couple days later, me, son, wife's in the vehicle, passenger seat, son's in the back, and whatever's going on, I'm like, oh man, da da da, whatever. I get frustrated, and he's like, Dad, it's okay, just calm down and take a breath. And I was like, thank you so much. I was like, it is okay. I wanted to share that. Yeah, somewhere
Yes,
along the lines, I thought of that
yes.
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I
It's
just wanted to
so
share that one.
beautiful. You're in this is you're speaking to so many things, and one of them is we must also include our children in our journey. If we only show them, it's like if we're the human version of Instagram in the house, it's not going to work. You cannot just show your bright and shiny side, the best version of yourself, to your children. You show them when you mess up. You show them when you have a failure. You show them how you recover. You show them that you make mistakes, because what happens when they make a mistake, or when they fail, or when they fall down, and they haven't been modeled how to get through that. And so I love what your experience on so many levels. One, you were honest and authentic. You told him, like, it's important, especially our fathers and our sons, to share, like, I'm feeling really sad in my heart, or I'm having a really hard time, or I'm feeling really frustrated and I'm a little scared what I'm going to do next. And I don't want to do what I feel like I'm going to do. And I want to figure out a way to move through this anger. Like, we're communicating with our children, we're giving them tools versus saying, son, you need to do this next time. You say,
Mm-hmm.
can you? You asked for consent. You
Mm-hmm.
empowered him. You gave him a voice. You gave him an opportunity to help you too. We are walking each other home. We are not better because we are the parent. We do not know more because we're the parent. If anything, I tell my daughter, I'm like, sweetie, you came into this world, in my opinion, knowing everything. And you are helping me remember the things that I forgot because I went through some hurt and some pain. And she's like, she goes, Mom, yeah, that actually makes sense to me. And I believe that too. She goes, but you've done a lot more things like in your life. And so I want to learn some of those things from you too. Like, that's a real conversation. Like, I'm being like sharing my truth. Like, hey, I believe you have all the wisdom of the universe, the universal truths within your soul, and yours are still open. Like, you're still receiving that divine information. I've had to work 42 years to open up all my channels again, to remember those divine truths, and they're not mine. That's why I share the conscious parenting work and the coaching work that I do. And it's not mine. I've just done enough work to this point to open myself up enough to have access to this information. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going on a tangent, and it's so beautiful what you did with your boy. They need to hear that.
Well, while we're on that subject, what about people that are listening that would like to connect with you more, be it get more information on conscious parenting? Let's start with connecting with you. What's the best way to connect with you?
So my company is Welly Nest, like WELLY Nest, like a family nest. So I'm on Instagram, and my website is just wellynest.com. My handle is just Welly Nest. And then you can find my email and my phone number, and you can schedule a discovery call. You can look at the programs I offer. And I do Psych K, which is the reprogramming of the subconscious mind, which works really beautifully with the coaching work. And then I also do strategic intuitive business coaching. I take all my kind of Wall Street business, biz dev world and bring it at the conscious level, because ultimately the same work works for the business. Like, if you don't believe your company can grow, if you don't believe you're worthy of having the best team, the best clients, avatar clients, the best business model, and you don't believe that, you're going to have a block. It's incredible when I work with a client and they do the work and they harmonize these belief systems. Like, their social media manager comes in, the avatar clients, they up the
Yeah,
revenue
yeah,
by
yeah.
20 grand a month, 50 grand a month. It's just, the door's open. It doesn't need to be as hard. Yes, we need to do the intuitive action steps and put in the work and be consistent and show up. But a lot of times the difference is you show up and do the work and you've harmonized your beliefs. You live like a healthy, joyful, expansive life, or you don't harmonize the beliefs and you run yourself into burnout. And that goes burnout with your business, burnout with your children, burnout with your relationship to yourself. And often we're the first one that begins to suffer, right? Like
Hmm.
the nutrition goes out the window, or the self-care practice goes out the window, or the positive mindset or the loving thought, whatever it is, right? We're normally the ones that we start to hurt ourselves first or limit ourselves first.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. And that's so true. So for everyone listening on the audio, it was Welly Nest, WELLYNEST. Is that right?
Yep.
Wellynest.com. So everyone
Mm-hmm.
listening on the audio, wellynest.com. And if you're just listening to us on whatever those words were, if you're just listening to us on the audio, you can check out the video. We're on YouTube at Success After Trauma, and we'll have those links posted on there as well. Tamara, before we get out of here, who is the who is that more client avatar for you in the current chapter you're in right now? Who's that person that really benefits and connects well with you and your energy?
I love that question. So the avatar clients in my practice are the ones that are really ready to transform. I call them, they're the cycle breakers. They are the mamas, the papas, the individuals. They are coming in. They're the ones that were different growing up. They're the ones that were different in school. They're a little different from their family. They know something is off and they don't quite know what it is. They're passionate. They live really big lives, or have really big heart, or care and love so deeply, are really sensitive. They're the ones that want to make huge strides. Yes, I can work with all the people in any realm, relationship coaching, conscious relationship. We didn't even talk about that, like beautiful conscious relationship, like the ability to hold your own pain and your partner's pain at the same time and stay in divine connection and not disconnect and not disassociate, like, is so powerful. And sidetrack, but I love that conversation too. Maybe another time. I love the conscious
Absolutely.
relationship,
I
and
think
conflict to intimacy is like, oh my God, I love who I am in partnership now. I mean, I'm not in partnership, but my last one, I literally got to walk away from that saying, I love who I am in partnership. I love the way I show up. I am so in love with the way I respond in conflict and hold us in conflict, and am curious about my partner's trauma, and want to work with them and grow with them, and not be like, oh, you need to go do your work because I did my. It's like, no, we are in this together. Conflict is the pathway to intimacy. So to answer your question, the avatar client, they're the ones that they want to say, they're the ones saying no more, no more, not here, never again. This stops here. I will free myself. I will free my children. I will do it differently. I don't know how to do it yet, but I know I'm going to. They're the ones that believe life can be easeful. Like, deep down, they may not be living it, but they know it's possible, and they crave it, and they're going to find the support they need to help awaken their own genius to be able to live that life.
Would you do, well, I say do me a favor. I do ask the guests. So if you would do as a favor, if you feel so called to, would you share, just in closing words, would you just share whatever you're channeled to share with that group that's sitting out there right now, that feels called, that has that calling, that knows there's something more? Um, would you channel a message to them?
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing I would say is let some of that chatter in your mind get quiet. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay if your world falls apart. It's okay for things to get really hard and really messy before they get easier. And if you want your life to be different, if you know that there is a different way, then it is absolutely possible. The moment we set an intention, it is already energetically out in the world. We are already putting that frequency out, and then you're just waiting for it to manifest itself in, the 3D world. God bless you. And
Thank you.
so I would say be vulnerable, put your guard down. Let it get a little scary. We're meant to work with our shadow. It's not all light, through the cracks, through the pain is where the light comes in. And yeah, there'll be time focusing on the pain and the trauma, but eventually you're going to feed the light. Eventually, everything will be different. And you will be so grateful that you took that first step, that being vulnerable, sharing that you don't have it all together, letting your world fall apart, letting it get harder before it gets better, and realizing you don't have to do it alone. We're not meant to do any of this alone. We're living in these like mono families, and we're meant to be in community. We're meant to have support. And so reach out and find your support systems and ask for help. And if you feel deep down what you want is freedom, then you're most likely on the path to finding this work somehow. If you want to free yourself, you want to free your children, and you want to free, your all the generations to come from the heaviness of what came before you. And they're also our teachers. Like I bow down to my grandmother's 100. I bow down to the wisdom of the women that came before me, their strength and their courage that brought me to this moment to be able to be the pattern breaker in my family, the cycle breaker in my family. And I wear that with honor, not with any type of shame or guilt. And I'm grateful for my divine curriculum. Find the gratitude, find the forgiveness. That'll free you too.
I love that. Thank you so much, Tamara. We're gonna have to have you back on another episode. Definitely start talking about the relationship stuff. Thank
Yeah.
you for being on today and sharing everything that you shared.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
And for everyone else, stay in tune with us. Next week we'll have another episode out. Again, if you're listening to us, if you're watching us on the radio, then listen to us. And if you want to watch us, check us out on YouTube. Until next episode, be great. It's already in you.